And it took an extra 10 minutes to figure out for the finals. So that's fine. That's fine. That's whatever. We're finally ready. Finally ready to go. In the bottom left of the finals, the best of 5 finals, it is GungFuBanda. In the top right, as the blue Terran, it is Liquid Clem from Clan Blem. Team Liquid, but like, Blem is just so cute. So Gungfu had to deal with a lot of cheese last series, and almost got toppled by it. His return cheese first didn't work, but then try again. Second cheese ended up working. Gets the Game 5 victory, but it was close. Clem kind of just steamrolled through Showtime, 3-0. And while Gungfu did show a little bit of cheesiness, you know, that 5th game went for the Void Rays, then the DTs, one other game went for DTs. He's not really a cheesy guy. Just like, this is not going to be at all similar to the last series. And if it's not, then Clem probably just wins 3-0. Which, he won last series, last week's finals, 3-1, I think. He did lose a game versus Gungfu. Gungfu's got some pretty solid macro PvT, but it's just like Clem's even better. Clem's solid, and he's got the pizzazz. Already starting off with a totally normal Gateway Nexus, Rax Command Center. You know the drill. Trying to get into the hottest nightclub in town, EU Finals. I was listening to a podcast. I listened to a podcast called Red Handed. It's like a comedic real crime podcast. Anyways, and they were discussing the club kid scene, which I had no idea about. I learned many things from this. But this one kid ended up killing a drug dealer and then dismembering his body and then bragged about it. Well, bragged about it / was awkward about it for like a year until someone connected the dots and was like, oh, you really did kill him. And this guy was super popular. Yeah, apparently this whole like club scene existed that like, you know, you'd have people who made parties, people would go to the parties and then they would be paid to send those people to nightclubs. And then at the time in the 90s in New York, you would have people not just do that, but also, like, nightclubs would have drug dealers, like, on payroll. And I was like, that sounds like a really, really crazy time. And then, what's-his-face, the mayor of New York, like, started to clean things up in the 90s, 2000s, but, yeah, that was a whole scene I had no idea about. Obviously, I know that there's, like, club kids, like, people who just love going to parties and clubs, and, I don't know, I always think of, like, young British youth doing this for some reason. I don't know why, but I just the amount of detail that went into this, the complexity, the web, the amount of people who would get in just because they were beautiful, they were famous for being famous, kind of the start of that type of thing, you know. It's kind of crazy to learn. The actual murder itself and like investigation into it was not that fascinating, but the scene was fascinating. So what my drop is commencing. Clem took care of the hallucinated Phoenix and then is going to do his thing. So probably not expecting big money shots here, but still gonna do it. So does a little bit of scouting anyways. It was a 2 gateway, span to 3rd Nexus. Gungfu's gonna do his macro game finally, which Marine Lord just really was adamant about not letting him do. Clem's already been denied access to the natural. He's gonna chill, probably bring that in once he pushes, as he sets up for, oh, a second What Am I drop, actually. And then gets his barracks on the way. Gonna start up his upgrades. Gungfu is going to be pretty happy with this opener. He finally gets to play the PPT that he wants. And that is looking like actually a mass gateway play. He has one gas into the natural, but not much else. Perfectly timed on this. Stalker's gonna stop that from coming in, but again, these are now just possibilities for later. Once Clem pushes, then things get kind of hectic. And the medevacs come in, kill a bunch of stuff. And actually, Clem's looking to do this long before a real push is supposed to even happen. This little Marine squad without any upgrades, I think, is specifically trying to make room for the Wood of Mine to do some damage. Like, something's got to give here. Gungfu does not have that many units. But Gungfu handles this with, I mean, almost perfect. He lost an observer, so almost perfect, but that was perfect. Shield battery was already done. I think that was pretty critical to defending that third base, and the force fields were there. Wood of Mine drop does come into the natural. Okay, finally. All right. As I said, something had to give, but Gungfu was all over this. I think he probably figured, seeing those Marines move out, that this was an attempt to dislodge the Stalkers, which kind of works. We have some Blink Micro. The poor Sench is going to be left behind. Not quite. All right, he gets to live. Clem's still not really on his real push, by the way. Medevac's only now coming out. Upgrades are only now finishing. Wood of Mine drop number 2, heads into the main base, grabs 4 probes, and might just survive. No way. I think it's already done. So this Wood of Mine drop's going to come back to the 3rd, and that will hit something. Just a single probe. Now this is all attempts to do damage to the probe line, attempts to find a couple of cheeky stalker kills, but it's also a bit of scouting, like where are Gungfu's defenses and where are his weaknesses? And Clem, noticing perhaps that the army was at the 3rd base, goes right into the natural, takes out the robo, takes out the zealots, gonna take out these stalkers in the main base. Lots of marauders still alive. That Colossus is coming forward to try and take care of it, but the Colossus ain't that quick. Stalkers certainly are, but not quick enough to actually chase down these medevacs. That was a bold move. Even though that was an open space, it was not that far away from the army, and the army was pretty mobile. Blink was done. But now we have an observer going down. Stalkers are going to fall because there's so many marauders still left over from this drop, and Clem is getting little bits, you know? Like, Gungfu is so close to perfectly dealing with everything, but it's actually Clem who's getting just a little bit extra from every engagement. So he's up double the army supply. Of course, got faster upgrades because Gungfu doesn't have any forges. That's actually a big problem. And even his gateways are, I think, a bit late. He's banking quite a bit of cash here. So his gateways are late. His charge might also be late. And he kind of needs both those things to actually defend against Clem's ultimate push. Doubling the army supply. It's going to just break through this, and Clem... I mean, that was just at every turn, him being slightly better than Gungfu. I wouldn't even say it was anything, like, specifically big. Like, the push into the natural was pretty big. Killing that robo was pretty big. Definitely don't want to underplay that. But, I mean, it felt like it was nothing. No 20 probes killed. No Colossus out in the middle of nowhere. Just Clem having such good insight to what Gungfu was doing. He just knew exactly where he would be and where he wouldn't be. Aren't there always drug dealers in nightclubs? Yes, like always, basically. But like they would have drug dealers on payroll, as in not like literally. Apparently, they wouldn't have like drug dealer on their like tax forms, but. And apparently it was just like so rampant. Whereas now it's kind of, you know, it's definitely more on the down low. Apparently, this is one thing, the very interesting factoid. I didn't confirm this, so feel free to say if it's wrong or not. But according to this podcast, one of the things that New York did, that Rudy Giuliani, whatever weird dude now, did, was that he used a really old law called like the cabaret law that said that you can't, what was it? Like if more than 3 people are dancing, you have to buy a cabaret license, I think is what it was, something like that. So, you know, if obviously, like, and that's not like employees dancing, that's like anyone dancing. So if you wanted to have a nightclub that was like a small nightclub even, you know, if more than 3 people were dancing, you had to pay a really expensive license. And this is apparently an old rule from like, you know, I don't know, decades ago, that just people were like, eh, don't take it seriously. And he brought it back. It's like, nope, we're doing this. I just got Tayu's meme. We move on to Romanticide. In the top left, already up 1, he is Liquid Clem. And in the bottom right, we have the red Protoss, GungFuBanda. Exact same finals that happened last week. So Gungfu's showing consistency. He's gonna go for a natural wall off. Maybe a little bit of pressure applied to Clem. Doesn't really add that much more pressure than a wall off at the top. More so about dealing with the Hellions, which can certainly happen. Clem was all about the Buddha Mines last game. And the clever Marine pushouts. But he could definitely go into the Hellions. I feel like I had another story. I don't think it was about a podcast, though. I mean, I listen to this podcast pretty frequently. And, they also talked about the soap lady in Italy who wanted to protect her son while he was in World War II, so she cut up people and made them into soap and tea cakes so that their sacrifice would protect him from dying. I guess it worked. He didn't die in World War II anyways. I swear there's something else I was going to bring up about parties and nightclubs. And I just can't remember what it was. Oh, I remember what it was. I've been reading the book Crazy Rich Asian. So there's the movie, and this is another example of a movie that I actually thought was much better than the book. The book is like, I don't know. I don't think the guy's a very good writer, personally, but that's fine. And it just like, it really, like at first it was kind of a, you know, funny how much detail it would be given to like how expensive stuff was or the exact make and model of like all their clothes because they were all judging each other and you were like, wow, this is actually crazy. But then it did that for 700 pages and I was like, okay, no, I'm actually just fucking bored. Stop telling me what they're wearing. But anyways, it's apparently a trilogy as well. So the movie's much better. I suggest watching the movie. But in the book, yeah, they just go on, you know, all the time about how like beautiful and fabulous and expensive these people are. And I gotta say, I've never really been jealous of like being able to buy expensive clothing because I've never really enjoyed shopping for clothing. But then it just made me feel bad about not enjoying buying clothing. I was just like, what's wrong with me? I don't know. Body dysmorphia and all that, I suppose. But, I am gonna read the rest of the trilogy because I'm curious to know what happens. But yeah, I don't think he's a very good writer. I don't know how I got so popular. That's fine. Alright, the aggression is going to start here. Bunker's already done, so the aggression can really only do so much. Hellion might, I was going to say, might circumvent the attack and go for a scout, but it actually just pulls back entirely. Methinks these youths are moving too enthusiastically. Better find them. Boomers, am I right? Gungfu is what? Only got 2 gateways. One more in the main base. Goes for one of the quickest third bases you really ever could get. 3-4 minutes. Didn't really build that many. Oh, he built 3 units. Okay, so he built 3 units. That is the norm. But then, I guess didn't get, only got the gateway, then the Nexus, then the Robo. And the Twilight Council only starting to blink recently. He's trying to get away with a couple of extra things here, and that is fine, because Clem's not doing anything super aggressive. In this game, he's not even going for the double Widowmine drop. There is a Widowmine drop on the way, as Terrans tend to do. We got some tank production as well. Clem's gotten a little bit of scouting from the Reaper earlier, but nothing beyond that, so the threat of a 4-gate could still be very real. It's not actually happening, though. Widowmine number 1 gets 1 probe. Widowmine number 2 gets, more importantly, a scout. Not a very exciting scout, I suppose. 2 gateways on the way for a total of 4 to help defend a third Nexus that is already done. Nothing else. No robotics bay, no Templar archives, no 6 gateways. And the medevac might actually not see the third Nexus. It should be known. It is known. Robotics bay is now on the way. Medevac did not go in the double check. Medevac tried to escape. Gungfu was all over it. Gungfu being all over it means that they are not on the front lines currently trying to halt any push, however, so Clem could do it without any headache. Now, he's not prepared to do it. Stim and combat shields and all that only halfway done, but when he's ready, the Stalkers might not be in place. Okay, they're gonna put themselves in place. And the Medevac can now escape. Look at that. Look at that. Thank you, Blorg1313, for the Prime sub. I hope you subbed because I was critical of Crazy Rich Asians. I used to read like a ton. I was one of those kids that was reading all the time. And then I stopped and kind of just like reread things I liked. But I've been trying to read more again, and I'm just like, there's so many bad writers in the world. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like overly critical, but and it's like, could I do better? I don't know. I was a fair writer when I was younger, but I've definitely not practiced it in years. But like a book that describes nothing but unnecessary detail the entire time, and then no detail on the actual human interaction, seems like it would be bad. So nothing. And there was another book that I read, that I'll get into after this fight, that was no detail ever whatsoever. Just dialogue. And I'm like, well, that's a way to write, I suppose. The Clem is ready to do the push. Stalker's not really be able to buy a whole lot of time. Sentry goes down, no Guardian Shield. Shield battery's a little far back, so that's kind of concerning. And charge is not quite done, but there you go. Charge is done. 6 probes already gone down, I guess, to a Widowmine drop in the natural, which is currently not being cleaned up. And the drop in the main so far is successful. I'm actually getting quite questionable by the second. Stalkers do go down, sure, but the Zealots be on top of this. More Stalkers trying to be reinforced. Not enough to actually kill both Medevacs. But one finally falls, but there you go. The Widowmines in the natural were not being cleaned up. They get a second shot. 10 probes get killed. And Clem gets away with third quarter of his army, and then Medevac in the main base. That's gonna chill. It's just gonna chill. Chill, brah, chill. Yeah, I forget the name of this book. It was suggested to me by someone in Discord, so maybe, is it Cuddlebun or something? I don't remember. But it was about, like, people being locked in because they have, like, a disease, like a virus that goes around. Very eerie reading it in 2021, you know? But, yeah, virus goes around, people get locked in, or people have the ability to, like, let people who are locked into their bodies into their brain. And it's like a detective story, which is cool. But then, I mean, it was just nothing but dialogue. Like, at first I thought the lack of descriptions about the main character was because it was a robot. And I was like, well, I guess the robot wouldn't have a lot of, like, facial descriptions, right? But no, like, barely anything got described. Like, brown hair and a jacket was, like, the most description you'd see in this book. I was like, I don't know if it's really a good book. But you know, it's arguable, right? Because a good book is something that you find interesting. And ultimately, I was interested in finding out who the murderer was, so... You know. A couple of zealots looking for a run-by instead get taken out by Clem's little army here. I mean, it's not a little army at all, but it's an army that was seemingly out of place. What was it really going towards? Might have been actually trying to sneak its way into the natural, which at least the zealots were able to scout that. And then if it's not going into the natural, is it headed into the natural's mineral line? There you go. Is it actually going for a drop? Could be. Gungfu doesn't know. He doesn't have much presence out in the map. Just a single observer over Clem's main army reinforcement point, which is pretty good. It's always good to have an observer there. But nothing to the natural, nothing to the main. It's a tad scary. So far, so good on Gungfu's defense, but this fourth base is, I think, the real test. Clem's maxed out. He's saving his army by the looks of it, and he's got a lot of other army coming forward. Now, Gungfu knows that. That observer is coming in key here. But Gungfu, feeling a little bit confident with his Colossus, kind of wants to take some, you know, not really engagements, but shave off some units, distract the main army. As DTs are going into the third and the natural. Warp Prism might go into the natural as well, and Clem's about to take a clobber into his economy. So does Gungfu, though, as another Widowmine drop kills 12 probes, and at least he's getting some revenge. Oh! Warp Prism goes down to Widowmine Missile Turret combination. Excellent done. Well done by Clem. He just knows what to expect. Fourth base was the real test, as I said, and it has to be canceled. And now the main bases are under fire. There is one disruptor, I think. No, it's two disruptors. 3 disruptors, actually. My bad. 3 disruptors. And a fourth one on the way. Also, a hallucinated Colossus, kind of a nice touch. It is scanned, but if it's not being scanned at the moment, the bio units won't know that. They will attack it, even if you yourself are like, no, dummies, that's a hallucination. What are you doing? Clem finally cleans up all the harassment. It did kill, like, what, 20 SCVs? Something pretty serious. 17 SCVs, but... Clem's still at 67, and his bases are all still alive, and he's even working on a 5th base, so... I love Gungfu's use of hallucination. It's arguable that essentially do much more than that. They have a Guardian Shield, and they have a couple of Force Fields, and the rest of the energy can go to hallucinations. But it also looks like it's been a mistake, because he also built probes, so I don't know about that one. This fight is not going Gungfu's way. The Disruptor's got one good shot, and then nothing else, and then everything else coming down the choke, into the tanks, into the bio. With 2-2 done on them as well, has just been a catastrophe for Gungfu. And that's gonna be that. Colossus can't hold up against the might of the army. GG, Clem with the 2-0. Did I read Name of the Wind? No. Ugh. I mean, people say I should read a book, and then all he gives me is the title. You ain't got a better sales pitch than that? Like, why I should read the book? What's cool about it? It's game 3. In the top left, we have Clem. In the bottom right, as the red Protoss, it is GungFuBanda. Could be the last game. Kind of feeling that way. Clem's just kind of all over Gungfu. I mean, even when Gungfu seems to be living totally fine, he seems to be doing his thing. Last game, there was a lot of Gungfu doing what he could without being interrupted. And it still didn't really end up battering. Clem still clobbered him. Gungfu kind of took like a kind of greedier approach, which really paid off. Clem wasn't doing anything to really punish it. He got a decent... I guess maybe he could have been greedier, I suppose. But he got to a decent army, Colossus, Disruptors, plenty of gateway units on the grounds. And then he was on his way to a 4th base at a pretty reasonable time. One cancel would not have been the end of the world if he would have been able to break out and replace it. But he just did. He wasn't able to break out. Despite having a pretty good army, he was still down 30 supply. And I don't know exactly. I mean, having to be up in his own natural, I guess, is what really hurt him. Not being able to take the fight out in the open a little bit more. Got too good of a concave from the Terran. Had to back away. Is that what happened? Maybe the run-by investment wasn't actually worth it. It killed SCVs, but then left Clem with a bigger army. And Gungfu had just used, 10 warp-ins to do that. Maybe. It's a book about Mary Sue with a lot of waifus. That sounds fucking terrible. You guys terrible at convincing me. Can't tell if you think that's amazing or if you actually just don't like the book. Reaper comes in here before the shield battery is actually done. Gungfu wants to go for some harassment of his own, but it's going to be in the face of a bunker. The shield battery not being done. The Reaper already gets 1 kill. Doesn't quite get the 2nd. Alright, that was better than anticipated. And is not going to stick around to try and chew through the shield battery either. He's going to come back home and help out. The Adeptus should have passed the bunker. And is looking to take out the SCV if possible. A little bit of micro there from Clem to try and get a little bit. Just tap the command center in. Just tap it in. The Reaper home, there's a better chance the SCV will finish the command center. And there you go. Saves 1 of the SCVs, but then once the orbital more than anything else, Adept is going to get the Reaper. Oh, just shy of healing through that last shot. And then the Adept will die. Stargate opener for Gungfu is a big change up. I'm wondering if he's going to go into just Colossus and just be totally macro-oriented again. Different approach to it. Or if he's really going to change things up out of Twilight Council and go right into Charge. Because I kind of would like that. Gungfu is a solid macro Protoss, as we've seen. It's just like, he's not really doing anything wrong. It just isn't good enough. It's not catastrophically wrong. But suddenly it becomes catastrophic. The Phoenix for now. Helene's gonna get in and see that Stargate, see the Phoenix morphing in it, and die. It did its job. Well done. And I see gases, I see a robo. It is not gonna be charged, it's gonna be in a Colossus. Alright. The Phoenix are supposed to deter any Widowmine drops or any drops of any nature. And then provide a very different form of engagement as well than Charge, Blink, Colossus. Now it's like Charge, Phoenix, Colossus. So it does change things up for sure, and still getting a pretty quick third Nexus, looking for that macro game. But is it going to be enough? Clem has responded to that Phoenix opener with just a single Viking. Not going to bother getting a Cyclone, which a lot of other Terran players would do. He did get 2 Widowmines, and he does have a Medevac hiding in the utmost right corner ever. I actually cannot see that on the minimap. I would not be able to see that. You can't. No one can see that, right? That's impossible. That's just been a Wheel of Time, that name of the win. A Mary Sue with lots of waifus? Rand is definitely not a Mary Sue. I mean, he's maybe got a bit of like, yeah, like Deus Ex Machina or whatever. Like, suddenly I know things and I win, haha. But, not a Mary Sue. Not to mention, he's like one of at least half a dozen characters. I'm not even trying to defend Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time has a lot of faults, but I would never describe it as a Mary Sue with lots of waifus. That's a ant path of Marines. Just Marines, too. Widowmines in the medevac. No Marauders. No tanks. So we're going to be very vulnerable against someone if someone had a Colossus, but it's actually not Colossus. We only got a third gas, so the charge is supposed to be done. It's not done yet, and it's got hit by a Viking and a Widowmine, so this doesn't look too good. This is probably so much faster than Gungfu was anticipating. He does not have the army for this. He doesn't have any shield batteries, doesn't have any Guardian Shield. The Phoenix will not last against the Marines, and Clem adds on a second barracks a bit quicker, goes for stim, supercharged, super fast. So combat shield wasn't even done there. It was just, he attacked hard and fast, stimmed, wins. There you go. If only all of us could do that. So that's a 3-0.